Landlord out.
Poppins, Kendrick Lamar, my dude Rambo.
All hustle. Yeah.
All hustle is all hustle.
Absol.
All hustle is all hustle.
Dipset has a new album called The Landlord. It's about 18 records, I believe it is. And honestly, I really enjoy the record. I thought it was a solid record, and it's what I would expect from Jim Jones. Again, an artist that has just always had a knack for business, has always had a knack for making good records, and also, and more importantly than anything, not records that feel forced, that feel contrived to be commercial, that it seems like he's trying to, even though, he's been kind of like, blamed, or not blamed, but he's been accused of like dressing young and talking young. But at the end of the day, Jim Jones was the reason why Jim Jones to me was the Dame Dash of Dipset. He was the reason that Dipset was able to get the deals and the opportunities that they were able to get. That's the reason that Cam was at the forefront, but then they got Joel Santana a deal. And Joel Santana then became like the next big thing in Dipset. And, their style in general, they were Harlem to the core, which, by the way, he has another record on this album called Harlem, which is odd because in Summer with Miami, he has another record called Harlem. So Jim Jones, did you forget that you already had a record called Harlem? Anyways. So with that being said, I think the album is really good. I think it has a very new age, but still very New York feel to it. It feels gritty, but it does also feel, I don't want to say expensive because there's no pop kind of like sound on here, but expensive in the way that Jim Jones has always made things expensive. It's like, think of like Justice League production and braggadocious raps, but also, still gritty. Like it doesn't sound like Jim Jones is not being himself. And I value that a lot because in this day and age, and I think maybe in the past 10 years since like his prime, I guess, you kind of felt like some of these artists were trying to sound young, like getting on younger sounding production and getting on things that sounded like the times. But then again, can you blame them? I mean, after all, these artists are trying to succeed. And, especially when you have a dweeb like putting out music that's sing-along music and you're not a singer, it's like, how do you merge the gap between your street raps and what everyone's listening to, which is a rapper that sings about his emotions? Like it made the infrastructure of hip hop just unaccessible, because if I'm from the streets and I want to talk about street shit, then how do I do that when everyone's listening to fucking crooning ass rappers singing about their feelings and how they want to dirty mac their homie's girl and how you could do better? Like it's nonsense. But with that being said, I really like a couple of these records. See the Change is one of them I really liked. That's probably the most gritty out of all of them. Dice Peso, he kind of sounds a lot like Max B, not just on this record, but on a couple different records. We also get Acting Like That with Fabulous, which to me is like, peak New York, like battle rap style bars, which honestly isn't even Fabulous's main bag, but that's why Fabulous is so underrated when it comes to bars, because he always had a knack to create catchy records. You know what I mean? Like damn, Call Me. He had So Into You with Tamia. So Fab had a huge run of really successful records, and they were so commercially successful that the fact that he was actually an incredible spitter just kind of got brushed under the rug. But we get exactly that on Acting Like That. And I think it's great because, with Jim Jones, they have the podcast. So Let's Rap About It podcast with Mano, I believe Fab, Mano, Dave East, and Jim Jones. Mano, Jim Jones, Dave East, and Fab. Yeah. So, it's cool to see them actually working on music and doing a podcast. To me, this is what we want our OGs to do. We don't want you to stop doing music. It's dope. We get to hear you talk about your passion, your craft, get to hear you guys talk about your music and your peers' music and trending topics. And on top of that, we get music. This is literally the dream. This is the hip hop dream where not just are you an artist, but now you're able to monetize in multiple avenues of revenue streams. So, salute to Jim Jones and more flowers to you, bro. Like, you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing as an OG artist who has fought his way and through sweat, tears, and grit to put yourself in a position where you can do whatever you want every day of your life. And, who doesn't deserve flowers besides somebody who's accomplished that? I mean, I do that, but it's not for music, and it sure as ain't from this mic because this is my first episode. So what the fuck do I know? On top of that, we got Middle of the Summer, which is a really good vibe. I caught that on my second listen. And I don't know who's singing the hook. I don't know if that's Keen Streets or Ron E, but I love this record, and I'm really excited to play that in the car, riding around. And I think this is it really reminds me of the feeling that I got from Summer with Miami. And so Middle of the Summer is another one. In the Car with Young Blue and Cody Shane, I think has a lot of potential, even though the hook isn't exactly like the concept of it isn't exactly something I'm like, I see myself singing. But again, Cody Shane is doing the hook on this. So maybe it's one of those things where like this is more for the ladies, and not just because it sounds like it's for the ladies, but lyrically it's written for the ladies to sing along to it because, you know, a guy's not really going to say that, but I still have it in my selections for the Hip Hop Report playlist. So make sure you go check that out. And then we also have Where the Love At, which we go back into some straight gritty hip hop shit with Dice Peso as well as Dave East from the podcast. So salute to that. And then we have Manweave with Keen Streets and Dub Aura. These are a bunch of artists. I've never even heard of these artists, which lets me know, once again, by the way, this record right here, the 3-Man Weave, is crazy. Like, listen to this.
Triple A.
Hey, Doug, what's up, nigga?
JoJo B.
You know how I go down with it. What's a hole in the top? Juice it up.
That's New York. Like, this record is New York at its core. So we had to put that on there. And then also I added Boss Talk, which is the last record, which also has that, but it's not a super aggressive record. This one seems a little bit more introspective, but it definitely gave me like heavy New York vibes, classic Jim Jones flow. And it's got Safa James on there. So again, Jim Jones consistently seems to have his ear to the streets and always has new artists that he's introducing us to. And to me, that is literally core CEO mentality. It's like, not only am I giving you music, I'm giving you a podcast, and I'm introducing you to brand new artists from my city that you may not know of and that have talent, that have the ability to make great records. And so for me, you can't ask any more from Jim Jones than a record like this. With 17 records, I think we got, let's see, 4, 6, we got seven out of 17 records that I feel like are really good, solid records. And again, I'm always going to choose records that I feel like showcase the diversity in the album. So you may still like more than 7 of the records, but to me, those 7 records really display some of the highlights of the record. I also like Waiting for Response, which I think he really addresses a few things. I feel like I even heard a Jay bar in there just for the record. Yeah, so like I said, make sure you check that out. A lot of really good features, and as far as Jim Jones goes, man, like, impressive new album. And I don't know if I hear a single necessarily like anything as big as, say, Feeling Good with Mano right now. But again, that's not really Jim's lane. And Jim's lane has always been that he's going to have a single that the streets claim to be great, and that's how he's going to eat. I think Balling was an anomaly. But even in Summer with Miami, I thought he had amazing records like Emotionless, Honey Dip, Harlem. Like these are legendary classic records to me. But again, who the fuck am I? you know? So with that being said, Jim Jones, The Landlord, make sure you go check that out. Available right now everywhere. Ramble Hustle with the Hip Hop Report. And now back to the show.
Gang, music, breaks, these are the breaks. Music, breaks, these are the breaks.